Hi guys, and welcome back to the workshop. A slightly impromptu and different format video for you today. I just filmed making some extra wide window boards from solid timber on a sort of a bit of a side job. So I decided to film it and share it with you guys. It's not quite like the normal videos that I've been doing, but hopefully you can take something from it. So we're going to be using a 1.25 inch tulip or poplar, depending on where you're from, what you call it. It could be called either here in the UK, so I would call it tulip wood. Um, it's a bit of a weird wood, really. It could be quite light and almost white in colour. It can be green, like you can see in the centre of that board there, or it can have quite dark, almost purple staining through it at the same time. So you can get quite a big variation in colour. So it's not a timber that generally lends itself to a stained application. It's more of a timber that you would paint. I'm not saying that you can't stain it, but 99 times out of 100 it will be used in a painted application. So what we're looking for today is quite a wide solid timber window board. So we're aiming for sort of a 25mm thick finish, which is what a standard window board would be. So starting with this fairly straight and wide boards that's sold as an 1.25 inch product. I'm hoping to achieve that 25mm finish. It's not going to be easy because just the way natural timber is, to get a fairly thick finish off of a wide board over a decent length is actually quite hard work. So got to pay real particular attention at the planing process, not take too much off in each cut, and just keep checking the different ends of the timber, and only take timber off where you can, where it's thick enough. So like I say, you've got to be quite keen to keep your eye on the ball as to what's happening with the timber to be able to get a finished thickness that's going to be right. The good thing about window board is that one side of the majority of the window board isn't actually seen, so you only need the full thickness realistically right at the front of the window board. So if you do have any imperfections or tapers in the timber, they can be hidden on the underside. But due to the fact we had some nice wide boards, I didn't actually need to add an awful lot onto these. It was just a thin strip at one side of the board. So that's what that small strip I was painting up there was. I just run these through the thicknesser, taking them down about 1.5mm at a time until you get a cut that goes right across the board. And then it's just whatever your planer can handle, really. So I'm looking at taking about 1mm off each board for each pass on a full width cut like that, about 250-300mm. You don't want to be taking too much more off, especially if it hits a bit of cross grain or a knot. It's just going to stall the machine. So I think from memory I finished these about 28mm, and then I planed them down after I jointed them together to get a perfectly flat finish. So I've just straightened all the timber, so I've got nice straight and parallel cuts, and then I'm going to jump onto the spindle moulder and I'm going to add in the joint cutter block. This is a finger joint block, the 60mm cutter. This is a trend version, that it basically is a set of fingers that you feed the timber through in opposite directions. So one piece will face up, one piece will face down, and it does an interlocking cut that gives a bigger surface area for a glue joint than if you just butted the pieces of timber together. So we set this up right in the middle of the timber, so you've got the same gap to the top as you have at the bottom on the representative fingers that you're working from. When we're marking out, I just set the face marks on the best side that you want to see, and then write an up or a down against the face mark. So this tells me that I've got to use the face of the board in a up orientation through the machine, or a down orientation as I machine that particular edge. That way there's no confusion. If you machine it all so that you push it through face down, you have to mark opposite faces when you're doing the setting out process, and that's quite awkward, and it can get a bit confusing too. So you end up marking a bad face or an imperfect face as a face board. So I like to do it this way so that you see all your faces as you're working with the material. Once it's fed through, the joint should look like something like this. So you can see there's a huge surface area for the glue to bond them two pieces of wood together. We've got a bit of a step in the joint there after our initial test cut. So what we need to do is measure that difference between the two jointed boards. I think it was about 0.4 of a mil, 0.38, 0.4. So we need to move the spindle moulder in the representative direction, half of that distance. So we need to move it 0.2 of a millimetre. We can get it. There we go. And when we feed the boards back through, it does take a little bit of material off each time you feed the timber through, so it's cutting a fresh face on the whole edge of that piece of timber. So if you feed them boards through that were slightly misaligned, they should come into alignment. You might have to feed them through once or twice to take enough material off to cut that fresh timber away if it was quite far out, but that should give you a nice way of adjusting and getting a perfect alignment between the two pieces of timber. When you're setting up the fences on the spindle, it's really important that the outfeed fence, so the fence after the cut, is really accurately set up so that it supports the material as it leaves the cutter. You don't want to be nicking into the timber because it will just leave a gap in the joint at the ends of the boards. When I glue the boards together, I'm making sure that I glue the same tongue and groove parts on both the pieces so that when they're turned to meet each other opposite, that all the faces have glue attached to them. So if you look at that where I've separated the timber, once they've been contacted together, the glue squeeze gets to all the components of the joint. You can actually add quite a lot of PU glue into this joint. It tends to absorb in and make a nice strong joint, so make sure there is a decent bead all the way along. You'll get used to how much glue to add as you get more experience, but generally I don't cut the end off the nozzle of a cartridge gun for PU. I just use it as it comes from the factory, and that's about the right bead size of glue to put along the fingers of the joints. If you're not getting any glue squeeze with PU glue, you've not put enough glue on. So once I've glued them boards together, I'm waiting for it to dry, so I've just prepping the spindle moulder with the round over cutter that I'm going to use to finish the edges of the window board with. So this is about a 12mm radius round over cutter, and I'm just going to set it in the spindle so it's flush with the height of the bed, and set the fences so that we've got the same sort of equal radius around the corner of the piece of timber, both on the bed of the machine and the fence of the machine. Once I've got it set so the fences aren't going to collide with the cutters, I'm going to put a sacrificial fence onto the spindle moulder. So the idea of this is to support the window boards as I machine them or push them through against the spindle fences. So because we've set the height, we're not going to interfere with that once the sacrificial fence has been cut, so we know we've got a zero clearance insert, and I'll just push that back through the cutter and it'll cut exactly at the height that we want that finished cut to be. What that allows us to do is to machine the ends of the window boards without the without it being unsafe or without the risk of it diving into the cutter between where the two fences end. It's a really safe way of using a spindle moulder, because all you're seeing is literally the part of the cutter that's doing the cutting, and there's no way for you to sort of access any of the other sort of rotation of the cutter, because it's all sealed off with the sacrificial fence, and there's no risk of the material diving into the cutter between the fences because it's fully supported. Once that glue's dry, I just use a sort of old cabinet scraper and scrape the glue off from the surface. So it's dead easy if you've not got too much glue squeeze like that. There is a bit of an optimum time with PU glue when you can clean it off, which makes it a bit easier, but I always use a cabinet scraper over something like a chisel, because a chisel is dead easy to sort of catch the grain or peel a bit of grain up, and then that's another job that you need to fill it with, whereas a cabinet scraper will just scrape the glue off the surface and not damage it at all. Once I've squared the ends up, I'm just going to rip it down to rough sizing so it gets the board nice and parallel. And then push it through the thicknesser so that we've got a perfectly flat top surface to the board. And then you can see how the sacrificial fence makes machining of the ends of the boards really nice and safe and dead easy, so it's really accurate. It's a great way to work with a spindle moulder. You can of course use the power feeder to do these end cuts and the cuts along the front as well, which I'll show you in a minute. Always work with the end grain first. You need to cut the end grain on the spindle moulder so that the breakout is then taken away as you machine the grain along the length of the wood. So you can see I'm using a backing piece here with the spindle moulder. I'm using the power feed, and that backing piece will stop that end grain cut from breaking the material away at the end of the cut. Once you've done the end grain, feed it through along the length of the board. I prefer to do a double round over with a bit of a square on the window boards. I don't like it when they're too D-shaped. I think it just looks a bit nicer detail having a sort of a double round over and a square effect. Looks a bit old school and outdated with a demoulding or a half round shape. And it's just a case of giving them a quick sand on the face and all the edges and the roundovers, and putting a rebate in the back to slot into the window. Generally for painted joinery like this, I'll go down to about 120 grit on a random orbital sander, and hand sandpaper use anywhere from 120 grit to 180 grit. And you're just looking to take any sharp corners off and remove any planar ripples or any machining marks. Remember that the outside ends at the back are going to be cut away where it sits into the plaster reveal, as the window board quite often sits beyond the reveal to accept the architrave. Like I said, the final component to machine in is the rebate, which creates a tongue to sit in a window groove of the window. These are generally 10mm thick grooves, about 25mm from the bottom of the window. So we work to create a groove or a tongue on the window board that's just under 10mm. There we have it. That's the 2 window boards made, jointed together and ready to go to site to be fitted.